I'm Chili Dilly, the personality pickle. Packed in a jar for the freshest flavor. Served cold in a sack for you to savor. So dainty to eat, no muss, no fuss. An ideal snack for all of us. Crisp, tender, and tasty with a bit of spice. Buy one now. Taste how nice. Snack bar clerks will knock themselves silly, speeding your order for a real Chili Dilly.
The Ballad of Susie Gould. Here's a story, your only warning, so listen well. The story of a lemonade, a talking doll, and a little girl. She may look little and she may seem sweet. She'll offer you a tickle, then cut you deep. So be aware of the ghoul with a pigtail hair. Many men have wandered there, never were seen again, leaving all their junk behind when they met their end. Stories tell of a songless song as life fades from their eyes. So watch when you're out in the woods today, look out for a big surprise. Susie, sweet little Susie, if you let me go, the whole world will know about Susie, sweet talking Susie. You could rule this land with Ella in your hand. Oh, Susie, sweet sadistic Susie. Even if you seem insane, this world will fear your name, oh Susie. Even if you seem insane, the world will fear your name, oh Susie. Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You wanna be where everybody knows your name. You wanna go where people know people are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name. My wife and I, whenever we play the character and she's talking and stuff, we just get this amazing. She's got this great faux Cockney, oh blimey, governor, kind of accent. And my wife's always going, "I've done gone piss myself, I have." It's just so. It's. I mean, yeah, that was excellent. That was really
She was
good.
fun. Thank you.
Well, that was lovely fun and nicely done, Alexander, with the script there and putting things together. And it's nice when we can cross the streams like that, between the Elder Scrolls and Fallout. I've lived in both of the different worlds as different characters, so I love. To me, mentally, I can jump between them without a portal. I hope that
for the sake of the charity and stuff, that we raise a lot of money and we get people tuning in, and hopefully we can pull some extra people in from both worlds, which will help raise even more money. Well,
hopefully people who are watching this right now and have enjoyed this are able to make even a little donation. Every small donation helps, because what we're doing with this, I mean, you've got Tenniel, who in this story you've written is suffering from the beginnings of dementia. There's some forgetfulness, and the Alzheimer's is on the cusp. And there are people who live with that every day. And it's not just the people who are suffering from it. 55 million in the United States alone right now. It's the people who are the caretakers for them, the people who love them, who have to watch somebody they love disappearing before they're actually gone. That's the most painful thing. I've lost, when my grandmother passed away, I remember she called me up to tell me that I was standing in her living room and telling her she was no longer the head of the family, calling her names, being just very rude. And I was like, Grandma, I would never do that. I'd slap somebody upside the head if they tried to talk to you that way. You're lovely. Why would I do that? I went to her little apartment where she was at the assisted living house, and my headshot was on the table right where she pointed. You were right there telling me this, and there's my old acting headshot. And you know that it's time to get new headshots when they start cussing out your grandma. So, and then I had to deal with it with my mother and Alzheimer's, and watching them just slip away from who they are. And it starts with some hallucinations, and it seems sort of harmless. And the next thing you know, they believe that people close to them are gone. My mother felt that my brother had been killed and replaced by an actor. Not even me as the actor, just another actor. But, you watch them disappear from who they are. Alzheimer's, my uncle just became slowly gone, just disappeared. And you're looking into someone's eyes, and you no longer see them behind there. And it's the physical side of it as well. The body deteriorates when the mind is no longer there to help support it. It's an awful disease in so many ways. And that's why we're trying to get help for the Alzheimer's Association, why we're trying to help both the people who have Alzheimer's and those who are caring for those who have Alzheimer's. We're dropping the gloves on this because we want to end ALZ. Who knows what tomorrow has in store for any one of us? But we can help the people who are dealing with it right now.
Yeah, it's really in so many ways, I think it's one of the worst diseases imaginable. When my great-grandmother, when I was younger, when she started to show the signs, it was the same kind of thing, where they completely lose touch with reality, and reality kind of warps around them, to the point that they think things. Accusing people of stealing is pretty common.
Changes personalities. Yeah.
Yep, changes like
a sweet soul can be combative.
My great grandmother was just the sweetest woman imaginable, and she just became angry and violent, and it's heartbreaking, because I think for those of us who love people like that, and we went through the same thing with my grandmother too. We tried twice to have her live with us, to care for her when she could no longer safely take care of herself. And it becomes so overwhelming what their care is. The worst thing for caregivers is, because you love these people so much, making that decision to put them someplace is just heartbreaking. And you live with this terrible guilt, feeling like you gave up on them. It's a terrible disease.
The toll emotionally, the toll financially, the toll on entire families that have been torn apart. And it is because you love, because you want someone and you don't want to let go. When you have Alzheimer's, letting things go and disappear is very hard. And eventually you just don't know, but the people who are around you, they do. And my brother is dealing with this right now with a family member who's living with them. And the toll that it takes on the family is heavy. It's a heavy burden. And that we can do a little bit and give a little bit of a donation, a little bit of something, that can help. And the Alzheimer's Association is there with counselors 24/7 to help with doctors, to help with research, to help in the moment, to help sometimes find locations where people can be safely housed and taken care of. You know, it's all about love, caring for people with Alzheimer's. And it's not easy. As you know, Ken, it's really, really hard. And that's why I'm grateful to all of you guys being here today and everyone. This is just the beginning, guys, of our week-long effort to battle through Fallout for Hope and the Alzheimer's Association, that Voiceapalooza as an umbrella is going to be doing fundraising. And we have hundreds of gamers streaming at the same time. And you know what gets me? Everybody says out there, gamers, they sit around, they just play their games. They don't care about the world. They don't care about people. They are wrong. They are wrong, because I've seen so many good people right now saying, how can I help? Yeah. So many people who are working hard right now, whether it be donations on things for giveaways that we're doing this week, whether it be doing streams of their own, talking about their own situations and their own families, the outreach on this, and the love that I've seen going around through the gaming community because of this has been so moving. And I can't tell you how grateful I am.
Millions, as of today, as of this point right now, millions of people have responded to this campaign by watching and engaging with everything that we've been sharing on social media so far, sharing stories of their own, donating, putting their streams out there. So this is something that has touched virtually every single person out there. It's someone that you love, somebody that you know, or someone that you care for, friends.
And let's talk for a quick second, Ken, about some of the people we're going to be seeing this week, because already you've got Karen Carbone and Jan Johns here, who are wonderful voice actors and donating their time to come do this. Tell us about some of the other wonderful folks who are going to be joining us.
Yeah, before we move on, though, Karen Carbone, of course, everyone who played Fallout 3 knows that she's just a little bit of a sadist there with Moira Brown, sending us on all of these terrible quests where we're getting limbs hacked off and blown up, and just so she can write her survival guide.
Well, I am also your mother if you've played the game.
That's right. That's right.
As my own dear mother, who did suffer with early onset dementia. So I do have my own personal story and have lived through that. But as my mother used to say, before I had my own kids, she would brag to all her friends, oh, yes, well, Karen's had lots of children with Liam Neeson because being the mother in Fallout, I birth all the players and Liam is the dad, and I die in childbirth and get reincarnated as Moira Brown and the bounty hunter and a million other voices and all the prostitutes. So, yes, Fallout was lots of fun. And my mother never bragged about me being all the prostitutes in Fallout.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Yeah, you're both mom and a prostitute. There's something really deeply Freudian in there, and I'm not going anywhere near.
I've got a wide range. Thank you, Wes.
No, the funny thing is, my kids didn't care that I did any of these voices in the games or whatever. They would just go in the back room, and I'd hear them killing Imperial guards constantly. But, the thing is, they were like so floored when they got to get a call from Moira Brown. They're like, Dad, forget you, forget Lucy, and forget all these guys. That's Moira Brown.
Karen, there's one iconic line that we need you to say as Moira Brown.
Okay.
Them hot little potatoes.
Oh, them hot little potatoes. Is that close?
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And Jan, let's talk some of the. Is it Sierra?
Sierra
Petrova.
Petrovita or Petrovita, because she came back in Fallout 4 in the DLC, and we called her, I think, Petrovita then, and not Petrovita. I can't remember, because there's two different versions. It's just because we didn't do our homework.
Well, you drink enough Nuka Quantums, you forget how to say your own name.
That's true. I do have a Nuka Cola here. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. I have one.
Look at that. Yes.
Drink it.
Oh, it's been sitting on a shelf forever. So.
You also played Bitter Cup.
Yeah.
That was a hilarious emo character that you ran into.
That was a lot of fun. And trying to think who else I played.
You played a few in Fallout 3.
Yeah, I think Karen could probably speak to this too. It was just kind of like, it was like, here's a bunch of copy. Let's just blast through it and see what works.
Some of these guys, Mark and Ken, have been in my class, and I told them, I said, there are times when you go in to read one character, or maybe two that they've cast, and you have an idea of who you're going to play, and then they say, hey, here's 3 or 4 more, and pull these out of your ear and give us a completely different characterization. So how do you guys handle that?
Fear is great.
Dance for me, my puppet.
That's it. And I hold a lot of tension in my butt.
That's going to be in her book on acting. Hold a lot of tension in your butt.
Well, because you can't hold it in your face, right? And you can't, like, your hands, like, depending if you're doing like on camera or stage, it's drilled out of you where you hold tension. So I found that I just hold tension in my butt. So
I've discovered
the back of the I'm a Jan fan t-shirts. We could have I hold my tension in my butt.
Yeah. I've discovered there are times.
Hashtag tension in my butt.
When the tension hits, you can tell because somebody rises about 2 inches up just because the gluteus has squeezed and pushed you a little taller in your seat.
I think there's a crystal suppository we can get from Shea Gorath that will kill that for you, Jan.
No.
Spell cheese.
Oh, let's not go there. Let's not go there, lass.
Eagles.
Fromunda cheese.
Wow.
Ken, time to bring us back to something civil.
I don't even know what to follow that up with. But we've also been joined today by our own Mark Hausworth.
Hi. Yeah.
Dr. Mark Hausworth.
That's right.
MD.
He's the doctor of sound.
I mean, yeah, that too. I have become kind of a gear nut, but I actually am real honest to God, went to medical school doctor. In fact, this whole project to help raise money for Alzheimer's, 65 and older. So that's my demographic. 85% of my patients are 65 and older. So unfortunately, this is something that comes up a lot. And not that my job's not important as a physician, but believe it or not, it's this kind of thing that is going to probably do more in the long run to eliminate Alzheimer's than just one physician helping people out. Like with, the children's cancer that has been essentially was a death sentence and has been essentially turned into something that is completely treatable. Same thing can happen with Alzheimer's. So those few dollars that you can spend to help this out will come back to you in the end, because just like ageism will catch up to you, so could this horrible disease as well. I mean, not that I'm trying to make people scared about it, but this is something that will help you in the future as well, just like it will help everyone who's suffering from this. So I'm happy to be here, and certainly, to voice act with all of these amazing people who have done amazing things. It's really a dream come true.
I mean, statistically, and this is the sad thing, it's not if, it's when it impacts you or someone that you love dearly. That's the unfortunate nature of this disease. And Clint.
Thank you, Mark.
Clint joining us as well.
Oh, me? Oh, yeah.
Clint, who has obviously the best man cave ever.
We were talking about Clint's man cave before the stream.
Yeah, I do love my man cave. It is the Moose Lodge,
It's so
He built it himself too.
Yeah, I took a 12 by 24 shop building. That was just studs in a floor, and I put electrical. I've got 2 ACs. I've got.
Now you're the stud on the floor, Clint.
I'm the stud on the floor. That's right. I'm super happy to be here. I mean, I'm a huge Fallout fan, so between Wes and Jan and Karen, I mean, like I've listened to you guys a million times. One thing I've got to add, and I actually posted this on Twitter, my father-in-law actually texted me on my birthday, which was just 2 weeks ago, and told me that he was going to stop by the Crater Supply Shop and see Moira to get me a birthday present, but she wasn't open this late. So I just thought that was hilarious that I'm now sitting in the same Zoom call with you. So
we'll send you some of those hot little potatoes in the mail, Clint, for your birthday. Don't you worry.
She said the thing.
She said it.
Always like from the game.
No spoilers, but I do love the fact that if you follow one of my characters, Mr. Burke, and below that cesspool megaton off the map.
We did that last night, Wes.
I love that the only thing that survives is Moira Brown.
I know.
You are like the equivalent of the cockroach in that game. There's no getting rid of you.
I'm so flattered. Not.
It was that was the best trolling move ever in any video game I've ever played, because she puts you literally through hell on all of these crazy quests. And then by the time you're done with this book, you go to Crater, you blow the place up, you go there and you're like, yes, now I am free of her. She's like, hey, how's it going? I guess I'm a ghoul now. Her face is all melted, but she's still there.
And sounding just as, Fargo as ever.
Yeah, she's still chipper.
You can't let a little rat poisoning get you down now.
Yeah, and Alex, of course, writing this. When you sat down to start writing this, Alex, what did you have any inspirations or ideas when you were putting this together?
I'm a turncoat, so I started on the Chad podcast because I was a huge fan of I played quite a lot of Fallout 4. I hadn't really played the other ones, don't hate me, but I got into Fallout 76 and started playing that a lot with Jess, who voices Susie, and I really got into it. But then I kind of gravitated away from it into the Elder Scrolls and the Skyrim universe, because my wife's a big fan of Skyrim. Obviously, she's very, 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 very excited that getting to work with Wes, because she's been around that world and stuff. In terms of the inspiration, I wanted to do something. I mean, I think both those worlds have incredibly amazing fan bases, and we've seen that from the Fallout for Hope stuff that Kenny's been doing, and that all these people have contributed to over these last few years. And I wanted to try and pull some of that in to bring over that universe. And at the time I'd met you, Wes, doing the Christmas Carol that we did, and I thought,
which was wonderful. You were a fantastic Cratchit. I thought your voice acting was very emotional, and truthfully, that was my introduction to just how much good could be done. And I'm not to pull away from the focus from you for a second there, Alexander, but Kenny, I have to say, I put a little something out this morning to thank you. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. The things that you've done to help people by putting together Fallout for Hope, what you were able to do for St. Jude's Children's Hospital, what you are doing right now to help us with the Alzheimer's Association, the amount of good that you are putting in the world.
Don't get me to cry,
that makes me emotional, Ken. It makes me emotional. You are a good man. You are the hardest working man in showbiz. You have also a wonderful, soothing voice. You could read disaster reports and we'd all feel okay about it. So thank you, Ken, from the bottom of my heart. And I just, real quick, we'll get back to Alexander, but can everybody please give Kenny Vigue a big round of applause for everything that he is doing and done.
Well, it's the community that makes it work.
The community has been so amazing. And again, they reach out and they talk to you and they tell you about their own stories and their own touches with Alzheimer's and how it's hurt and affected them. And it does hurt. to lose somebody like this, it's a very personal kind of pain, something that we all kind of keep secret. It's almost like a family shame that you've lost someone and you hide this pain, but you don't have to, because we're all there with you. We are all there with you. We know, we've experienced it ourselves, and that's why we're doing everything we possibly can to help, because you know what? Screw Alzheimer's. It doesn't get to win. No, because we're gonna take life back, and even in the midst of life being taken away from us, we're gonna take life back. We are raising funds, but we're doing it through fun. And the fun here today all came about because Alexander Luthor wrote a delightful script, and we all came together to have fun with it. And even Mark's character, who I think, Mark, you have the perfect voice for answering spam calls forever and ever. Amen. But Alexander, let
me tell you about your car vehicle insurance.
So when you write this stuff, Alexander, where is your head? Are you thinking about the environment? Are you thinking about the characters? Do you play each of them in your mind as you write them?
Weirdly enough, and I don't know, I don't have that sort of thing. Kenny sits and thinks and interweaves all these stories. I actually just started writing this script, and I just write it. I don't have a process or anything. It just flows. And as I write one line, I think of the next line and the next line, and the next line. And then I start thinking, it'd be cool if this interaction happened, or, but it really came about from knowing both games. So I had to have that knowledge, but, getting back to what I was saying about the communities and what Kenny's done, and like, I want to pull more of these communities into Fallout for Hope. It doesn't have to be because you play Fallout. It can be because you play any game, or you want to be part of that community.
Yeah, that's something, and particularly I wanted everybody to understand. Fallout for Hope was born from Fallout, and in a game where you make choices in a world where there is no support structure. So you have a road that you can walk that splits, and you have the choice to make in terms of which road you want to walk, whether it's to do good or evil. The choices that we make in that game in particular got me to think about the choices that a very small group of people against gigantic causes can do great good. And, by the end of this year, we'll be closing on raising almost $500,000 for charitable causes since December of 2020, which is insane what this community, between the Fallout community, the Elder Scrolls community, and gamers everywhere who play other games but just really care about mobilizing for causes.
Care. Yeah. They really care. And
I don't want to hear any of this depth. I don't want to hear any of this bullshit about gamers contributing to violence or society's ills. That is just nonsense. Gamers, in terms of what they have raised for causes, even that Tiltify has published, the fundraising platform, they have contributed millions upon millions, tens of millions of dollars, doing the good work that arguably should be coming from other parts of our society. But they're gamers that are giving their fandoms and time to really raise money to make a difference in the world.
All we hear about is that
they have. It's amazing. It spans from their gaming into their charitable hearts, the way that they deal with other people, the way they interact. And I think that really comes across. And, the Fallout for Hope channels and on Discord and stuff, I just every day just pouring messages after messages of just good wishes and good communication, people having and, sharing
good souls,
sharing their stories. It's just a world of good people.
And we only hear about the toxicity in the news, gaming and toxicity in the that's a small, very small percentage. The vast majority are these wonderful, good-hearted people. The reason they're into gaming is because they enjoy having fun. Yeah. We all have our entertainments in this world, that you're able to take your entertainments, your fun, and turn it into something that can do good for other people. I'm in awe. I am in awe of each and every one of you out there for what you've done, and bless you, and I love you. Thank you.
Well said. Going back to what you'd asked me earlier, so for everyone watching now, to give you a highlight of what we have coming this week, tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. at British Standard Time, we've got El Gato Pub. coming up next with Tequila Talk. That's going to feature Wes Johnson, John Patrick Lowry, Ellen McLean, the voice of GLaDOS, Jake Green, and also John St. John, the voice of Duke Nukem.
As you can tell, that's not all Fallout stuff. This is gaming across the board.
Yeah.
And we have other people are going to be joining us. Matthew Mercer is going to be joining us later in the week. We have heard from other folks that are surprises who may be reaching in and reaching out to us. So you're going to want to stick around. Go to voiceapalooza.com and look at the lineup that's going to be happening, and make sure that one, you check out as much as you possibly can, and two, share these links, share this, donate. If you can't donate even a little bit, share it with other folks so that they can.
And I can't stress that enough. I know times right now with between inflation and everything going on in the world with gas prices and summer vacations, and I know it's hard right now for people to contribute anything. If you can contribute even a small amount, even if you don't, the very least you can do is tune in for these. Numbers matter. It helps boost us up the list. But also, please share these streams with everyone you know. Just let's get some eyeballs on it. Because the other big part of this is awareness. Alzheimer's is, for want of a better word, not as sexy in terms of grabbing headlines or grants or funds to really make a difference in the way that other causes have. Partly because unfortunately, so many of the people impacted by it are towards the twilight years of life. So it's not like childhood diseases where we mobilize people more quickly. So as many different headlines and as many eyeballs thinking about Alzheimer's and working towards a cure really helps. So anything that you can do to get word out about what we're doing this next week is helpful.
You're not just helping those who are suffering from Alzheimer's, you're helping the families of those who are dealing with it. Now, Ken, we are giving away a few things this week. You're sitting in something similar to something that's being given away, are you not?
I am, yep. So our very good friends at Noble Chairs, I cannot thank those people enough. They've been supporting and sponsoring Fallout for Hope since it began way back in December of 2020. So they're giving us 2 chairs that we are giving away this month. You can enter to win in chat by !Noble Chairs. We are giving away a Skyrim Anniversary Edition chair.
10th anniversary. It's beauty.
Yep. It is lovely. The stitching is really beautiful, as you can see on this one. They're also giving away a Nuka-Cola Fallout chair. These are both officially licensed merchandise, almost $500 value on both. Yeah, really exciting stuff.
That Nuka-Cola chair is like beautiful. The sports car of chairs. It's like this red super Nuka-Cola thing. I mean, Jan, you would look great sitting in one of these. Sierra should own one of these. Sierra's a collector of Nuka-Cola, is she not?
Yes, my collection. It's frosty and delicious.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and we're going to be doing some things with the Skyrim and Fallout board games.
Yes.
And so those are going to be fun, and we may be announcing some giveaways in regard to that fairly shortly. You're going to want to stick around because not only we're going to give away a few things, it's going to be fun. This is what it's all about. We are looking for funds, but we're also looking to have fun. This is going to be a wonderful event with so many people reaching out. And I think in a way, for some of you, this might be an introduction to the gaming community and streaming and Discord and, going in on Twitch or, what's available on YouTube. There's so many avenues for you to enjoy gaming that you probably aren't already doing. Or if you are, you can get deeper.
Yeah, and before we go here, the one last thing I can't stress enough, if you are a content creator on YouTube, on Twitch, on Facebook Gaming, if you want to get involved in charity streaming, it is very easy to do. And it does not matter if you have 5 followers or 50,000 or 100,000. What makes Fallout for Hope work is gamers working together the world over. So if you're looking for a team that you want to be a part of, reach out to me on Twitter. Or hit us up on the website, falloutforhope.com. You can click join team. We would love to have you. Anybody.
There's also a link to get to join the team, to get to Fallout for Hope, if you go through voiceapalooza.com as well.
Yep, exactly.
Everything comes back to Fallout for Hope, and voiceapalooza.com is going to be sort of your TV guide to where you can find everything.
Yep.
And yeah, this has been wonderful, and it's just the beginning.
We've got a fun week ahead for you.
40 years ago, Alzheimer's disease wasn't discussed at the dinner table or in the doctor's office. But a group of people devastated by the disease came together to change that. Out of their passion, the Alzheimer's Association was born, and today is the leading organization in Alzheimer's care, support, and research. For the more than 6 million Americans living with Alzheimer's, and their over 11 million caregivers, the association's free 24/7 helpline and website at alz.org are often a first source of information. From support groups to online message boards, the Alzheimer's Association is available wherever and whenever help is needed. The Alzheimer's Association is the nonprofit with the highest impact in Alzheimer's research worldwide, behind only the Chinese and United States governments. The association is currently investing more than $235 million in over 650 best-of-field projects in 39 countries. These studies will uncover new methods of diagnosis and deepen our understanding of the risk factors and causes of this fatal disease. As a result of the association's vision and commitment, the scientific community is now poised to discover breakthrough methods of treatment and prevention. The Alzheimer's Association has activated a nationwide network of dedicated advocates who, together with the association, work at all levels of government to address the Alzheimer's crisis. Under the association's leadership, and with support from champions in Congress, Alzheimer's funding has reached a historic high of $3.1 billion, and policies to enhance access to critical care planning are now in place. No other organization has the reach, the knowledge, or the understanding to defeat Alzheimer's disease. But we can't do it alone. Stand with the Alzheimer's Association today to build a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementia tomorrow. Join us.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Monica Marino, and I am Senior Director for Care and Support at the Alzheimer's Association. Whether you're joining us on Facebook Live or Zoom, we're really glad that you're able to join us today. I especially want to give a big warm welcome to Rod and Deb. Rod is living with mild cognitive impairment, and Deb is his wife of almost 23 years. But thank you so much. It's so nice to see you both again, and really appreciate you joining us to kind of share your story. I want to make sure that I get to all of my questions, so why don't we go ahead and get started. Now, as both of you know, the Alzheimer's Association has developed the 10 warning signs. And we know that each person can experience warning signs differently, just as the disease impacts each person differently as well. And so what may be cause for concern for one person may not be cause for concern for someone else. And Rod, I know in speaking with you, you had mentioned that you first started to notice some cognitive changes right after your retirement. Can you share with us what some of those symptoms were and how they were unique to you?
I'd put them in two categories, I guess. One is geographic ability or travel ability, knowing where I'm going. And the other is memory events of one kind or another. As examples of each, actually 2 years prior to being diagnosed, I was still at work. I was on an errand that I was not unfamiliar with, finished the errand and couldn't find my way back to work. I was taking wrong turns, geographic confusion. I finally used a GPS to find my way back. Under memory events, again, while I was still working in quality assurance, I was reading a document, thought, gee, I wonder who wrote this, and it was me. I just forgot that I had written it. And also, on a more personal level, a couple of years ago, we had rented a cabin on a lake in Minnesota and had children and grandchildren come and spend time with us at that cabin. it's not in my memory. I can look at photographs of the time and recognize people and so forth, but it's just not in my memory, at least not that I can gather in.
Yeah. We also know that one of the warning signs can be withdrawal from social activities or loss of interest. And you had shared with me your love for playing the guitar. Can you talk a little bit about how that changed for you as well?
It has changed. I used to just pick up a guitar of a given evening and fiddle with it a little bit. I played guitar, not professionally, but as a personal involvement for many years. And I think for me, it was struggling with remembering some of the finger positionings for different chords. And it just sort of bothered me, and I slowly stopped using the guitar for just personal relaxation of an evening.
Yeah.
I've done it now a good long time. Yeah.
And Deb, you know, you probably know Rod the best. You guys have been married almost 23 years. You see him on a daily basis. Can you talk a little bit about what were some of the changes that you started to notice with Rod over the course of time?
Well, some of the things that I was noticing, he just his emotional responses to things sometimes seemed a little different. He seemed like he was getting a little more, either he was very apologetic about things he was doing incorrectly. Maybe he forgot to get something at the pickup for us for lunch, and he would be very, very apologetic about it, and more so than necessary. And I saw little things just around the house that were just a little bit off. I wouldn't say I didn't see anything. I saw nothing humongous. The things that Rod are talking about were the huge warning signs for us that something wasn't right. But I was picking up, I think maybe what they call executive functioning skills. I was seeing some of that when we used a computer together to work on our bills. But it was more minor type of things that I saw until these other events occurred.
Now, you had also shared with me that during the course of about a year and a half, you were taking notes on this, correct?
Yes, I was. I was to the point, because we had sought help through a neurologist, and we were not getting favorable feedback from him. And I was beginning to feel like I was crazy, because I was seeing all of these little things, missed turns, forgotten where Arby's is, little things that just didn't make sense. And I started keeping a log for about a year and a half before the diagnosis of details that disturbed me, enough that I started saying, there is a true pattern here. I did use some of those notes to write a specific letter to the neurologist prior to an event of us attending, so that he would be aware of my concerns without me having to voice them with Rod there. And so that was very helpful. Since the diagnosis, I have not felt so inclined to keep notes like I did before.
Now, I think that's a great tip for families who may be seeing some cognitive changes either in themselves or someone else, to kind of just take the time to put those notes down, because when you go to visit the doctor, it's really helpful to be able to reflect back and be able to share what some of those changes are. I think, you know, Rod, you did a really great job of just kind of explaining these changes were very unique to you, right? You said you never got lost. You could go to one place one time and you know how to get back there. And so for you to have to, I think you had said at one point you pulled over the side of the road and had to use GPS, which you never had to do before. That's something that's very unusual for yourself. And so I think just important to recognize again that these warning signs are different in everyone, and they can impact different individuals in different ways. So, you know, a lot of the work that I do is being able to work with families like yourself. And a lot of times we hear about this turning point, some event that happened in which it made the individual or their family say to themselves, this is not normal. Something more serious is going on. And Rod, you touched a little bit around the phone call that you had with your daughter. Can you talk a little bit more in detail about that conversation and the family camping trip? And then we're going to touch a little bit around what that felt like to completely lose this memory of an event that occurred in which you had been a part of.
The phone call was probably a year after the event. And I chat with my daughters, I wouldn't say regularly, but frequently on the phone. And in one occasion on the conversation, my daughter Laura was recalling having visited us at that cabin and on that lake in Minnesota. They live in Minnesota. And it was a blank for me. And it was hard to participate in the conversation because I didn't have any specifics to reflect about. I was sort of bland, I guess, in my responses during that conversation. And afterward was more than a little upset that I didn't remember any of that. I mentioned earlier that I could look at photographs, recognize everybody in the photographs, but it's just not in my memory anymore, or I can't.
And that was a whole week, right, of that event that took place with your family.
Yes, it was a whole week.
That you could not recall. Yeah. We know that one of the most difficult conversations for families to have is the conversation about memory concerns that they may be observing in a family member or friend. And so I'm just curious, Rod, after you had this call with your daughter and you had shared you were really distraught over the fact that you could not remember this event, can you both talk a little bit about the conversation that you had after that phone call and what had just occurred?
Well, my memory of our conversation after the phone call is also sort of lost to me, other than the fact that I know that we shared that experience and we've had an established communication level where we don't mask things from one another. And I felt a great deal of comfort and support from Deb in connection with that specific event, but other things too.
For me, I saw was Rod was sort of bland in his response to Laura. I felt like something was going on the phone that I wasn't aware of because I could not hear both sides of the conversation. But when he hung up, he asked me about it. And when I started talking to him, I was stunned that he didn't remember it. And a great deal of sadness happened. Rod became very cheerful, and I was too, and his question was, how can I forget something that important? How could I forget something that we created for our children? What he was questioning himself as a person, honestly. And the other thing that came about from that is we realized in this journey, a lot of times we don't know what we don't know until an event happens. And that was a really big example of that for us.
Yeah. So there may be others listening today on Facebook or on Zoom, and they may be asking, what are some of the tips and strategies that you would recommend in approaching someone to have this conversation? Rod, I want to start with you first and what your suggestions would be to others.
Well, I think generally open communication is essential, and gentleness and kindness, dealing with the communication, let alone the other person, in genuine love is the basis for good communication in any case, and especially in cases of difficulty. It was very difficult for me to realize that I hadn't retained that memory, but because we talked about it and we were gentle with each other, it's okay. I can deal with it.
Yeah. And Deb, for you, what would you say to a care partner or caregiver who's recognizing this in a family member, a spouse?
Well, I as Rod said, you approach it with love and tenderness. But I also am very pragmatic, and I'm very frank. So I did not mince my words about it. I didn't, cover it up or sugarcoat it. I was clear, but I said, we have a problem, Rod. Let's figure this out, and we need to go back to the neurologist. We need to share this with him. There's got to be something that maybe has not been discovered yet. And it was truly a pivotal point in us getting more help. But I guess my response was be clearly spoken and just do it out of love. And I also believe in persistence. If someone is maybe turning away from it, doesn't mean that you can't revisit that later on.
Absolutely. Sometimes this conversation, because it's so difficult and sensitive, needs to occur over time or multiple times, right? And the Alzheimer's Association does offer a tool. It's called 10 Tips to Approach Memory Concerns, which really helps families kind of outline what are some of the things that they should be considering in being able to have this conversation with the individual that they're concerned about, or if they're concerned about themselves and they don't really know how to approach this with their families. So, Rod, I know after the call that you had with your daughter, you decided, I know you talk about, we were going to see another neurologist. We're getting a second opinion. And when you were given the diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment, also known as MCI, can you talk a little bit about your reaction to that diagnosis?
Well, I'd like to put this in the perspective of my life, our life together. We live a faith-based life. Now, perfectly, no, but if it weren't for the power of faith, I don't think I could have anything close to a positive reaction. Having had the diagnosis, it felt good to have something specific to assign all of this to. It was understandable. And even though the details were clouded, it was still a group understanding or a collective understanding of what was really going on.
And Deb, how did you respond to his diagnosis?
I responded in kind, pretty much. Honestly, it felt like it was a sense of you are on the right track. You haven't been hypervigilant. We were actually called hypervigilant by a doctor. You know, we truly were on a path of discovery, and we weren't going to quit until we got to some place. And honest to goodness, I did not want it to be Alzheimer's. I would have been happier with something else, but that was not the journey that we were supposed to be on for some reason. And we accepted it. Again, like Rod says, you know, we are a faith-based couple, and one of the things that he did was pray. And the prayer was that God, please use us for those that are coming behind us, so that maybe we could benefit others. And that turned me around from looking inside of myself to looking at others in a nicer way or more gentle way.
Yeah. And Rod, I have to say, I've talked to many individuals living with Alzheimer's disease or mild cognitive impairment or other forms of dementia. And what you shared as far as a sense of relief in knowing the cause of your symptoms, that is something that I have heard over and over again, just knowing that I'm not crazy. Like there is something causing this to happen to me. And now I know what I can do. I need to plan for the future. There are benefits to getting a diagnosis, as with any disease, right, that someone may have. And so I just wanted to say that is something that I hear over and over again, just that sense of relief in knowing the cause of what those symptoms are. Now, you both shared with me when we talked before how the diagnosis has really had a positive impact on your relationship, especially as it pertained to having deeper conversations and really thinking about the future and making decisions together. Can you, and that being one of the benefits, right, of an early diagnosis and really knowing what you're dealing with. Can you talk a little bit about the conversations that you've had, especially around driving? I thought that was a really great example of those discussions that you've had about what's going to happen in the future, Rod, when you may no longer be able to drive.
That was something that was brought up early after the diagnosis, knowing that that will be an eventuality. And from my perspective, again, I was very concerned with my husband and him maintaining his individuality, his independence, as long as possible. I didn't want to be the person to, put the hammer down and say, no, just because you have this diagnosis, you can't drive anymore. So the way we looked at it was we went through steps. And at this point in life, it's been several years since the diagnosis, and there has been some changes. And one of the changes that I've noticed has been making quick decisions, a quick turn here, or if you miss a spot, you could still, you're just not making those quick decisions. So we've kind of modified the route that he takes. I mean, he goes to certain places all the time, but if there's a specific place that doesn't have curves to it or it's windy, curvy, I just say, I'm driving, honey. This is my time to drive. And it's worked out for both of us. We also create a list of what we thought would be signs of it's time to quit. And we also decided that it would be nice. And I approached Rod with this. I said, Rod, I don't want to be the one to say it's time. I don't want the burden of that. I want you to help me. And that impacted Rod greatly, I think. So we hope that it will be a mutual decision that we come to.
And I trust will. It would be wrong for me to burden Deb with that dictum responsibility. And so I'm cognizant of my driving procedures. I think about it, and I believe we can make the decision together.
Tell them about the note.
Well, I did write a note to Deb, a vow, if you will, a driving vow, that basically says that I respect her view and I will accept her opinion under every circumstance. And this is specifically to include it's time to no longer drive. I don't cherish that opportunity coming along, but it will. And it's not just for my safety, but for safety of folks on the road with me that have to do this.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful that you both have had the opportunity, because of your early diagnosis, to be able to have these conversations together about driving. Deb, for you, knowing that when the time comes that you have to make some difficult decisions like driving, you know what decision to make because you've already had that conversation with Rod, and he's kind of given you permission to say, when the time comes, it's okay for you to do this and this, right? And that's one of the great benefits, I think, of an early diagnosis, is having the ability to include the person living with the mild cognitive or the cognitive impairment to be part of those discussions. That's great. So I want to ask, so many families that I speak to, or even those that I don't encounter, think that they have to go through this disease alone. And they don't know that there are resources available through the Alzheimer's Association to help them through this journey, right? No one should have to go through this disease alone. And so can you talk a little bit about, after the diagnosis, what did you do in order to kind of build that support and get yourself connected to help you through this journey and to deal with the diagnosis that you had been given?
Well, at first, it was a solo act, as you've described it, well, a duet. And I knew about the 800 number for the Alzheimer's Association. I suggested that we need to use that and take whatever advantage we can from it, and we did. And it introduced a whole panoply of things, of opportunities that are available for folks who are fighting this particular disease. And it has encouraged us and given us resources that we hadn't imagined existed.
What was interesting about that is during that period of time, I was in deep distress. I was tearful. I was having a hard time getting through each day. And Rod looked at me and says, we can't continue this way, Deb. We've got to do something. And he just immediately Googled, the Alzheimer's Association and found that number and was connected immediately via the helpline to someone in Georgia, which is where we're located that day. And immediately we got connected with the Zoom group. And it was a godsend. It was a true godsend.
Yeah. And after you made that phone call, then you got connected to your local chapter. You participated in support groups. And really, today, you've actually taken the opportunity to share your story with others, because I know it's so deeply important for you to be able to be there and help others from your experiences. So we appreciate that. That's great. Let me ask one last question. What would you tell someone who's just starting in this journey? So Rod, I'm going to go to you first. Someone who just recently got a diagnosis and really hasn't had a chance to kind of put their arms around what's just happened to them.
Well, first of all, I would strongly suggest open communications. Don't stand there by yourself and try to absorb whatever it is. Of course, talk to medical professionals, but talk to your family, talk to your friends, let them know what you seem to be up against. And to be really frank, honest with all those folks about anything that you are experiencing that as an individual now impacted by Alzheimer's. Open communication is an absolute necessity. Early diagnosis is very important because it gives you that extra time and it gives you the opportunity to participate in your own management. Open communication is it's essential.
And Deb?
Well, I feel the same way, but I would like to say this. I think one of the reasons people do not have open communication about this is fear. There's a lot of fear about this diagnosis. There's a stigma attached to it that makes you think that, gee, if I have this diagnosis, I'm going to be, in a hospital bed in the next 2 years. And that is not the truth. I mean, Rod has been diagnosed with this for over 2 years and probably has been having symptoms for 4 years. still drives, still preaches. And so what I would like people to know is that there is a true life between the diagnosis and whatever God calls us home, via the Alzheimer's route or something else. There are many, many years to be lived fully. And I would not let fear interrupt that.
That's a great message. And, certainly, I think the important thing out of all of this is that you could still live a meaningful and quality life in the very early stage of Alzheimer's disease or mild cognitive impairment. And both of you are certainly a true testament to that. I want to thank you both so much for spending time and sharing your experience and just really having the courage to be so open and candid, because I know that this is going to be so helpful to so many others. So thank you so much for your time in sharing your story with us today.
It's a privilege to have the time with you.
Great.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Alzheimer's Association Warning Signs of Alzheimer's Disease. I'm Stephanie Rolfs-Young, the Senior Director of Program Volunteers and Community Engagement, and I'm so honored to be your discussion host today. I am joined by an all-star team of Alzheimer's Association volunteers, including Pippi Rogers, who has been a care partner to her mother, who once experienced Alzheimer's disease herself, and is also now currently an advocate for the Alzheimer's Association, a community educator, and a member of our board of directors in the state of Georgia, where she serves as the vice chair of the board of directors. And Arthena Caston, who herself was diagnosed with dementia at the age of 51. And through her advocacy and her work with the Alzheimer's Association, she not only also serves as a member of the Georgia Board of Directors, but she is also a member of the Early Stage Advisory Group and recently joined the National Alzheimer's Association Board of Directors. Again, we are honored to have these guests with us today and so pleased that you joined us. What we'll discuss today are the warning signs of Alzheimer's disease and allow you to hear firsthand what it's like living with dementia. We'll discuss the importance of early detection, how to talk to a doctor or somebody that you're concerned about, and how to get a diagnosis, and of course, where to turn for Alzheimer's Association resources and support. So as we begin, I think every good conversation about Alzheimer's or dementia starts with understanding the terminology. And as you can see on this next slide, we want to give just a quick high-level overview to these two terms that are sometimes used pretty interchangeably, but mean very different things: Alzheimer's and dementia. So to start with, dementia is a general term for a decline in memory, thinking, and any reasoning skills that are severe enough to interfere with a person's daily life. There are lots of different types of dementias. And in fact, dementia is not a disease in and of itself, but rather describes a group of symptoms that are associated with decline in memory, reasoning, or other thinking skills. When we hear about dementia, we often make the association to Alzheimer's because Alzheimer's is the most common form or the most common cause of dementia. And Alzheimer's is a very specific type of disease, whereas dementia is not. In fact, Alzheimer's is a degenerative brain disease that is caused by many complex brain changes that really are followed by cell damage. It leads to the symptoms of dementia, and in most cases, Alzheimer's gradually worsens over time. Through this webinar, we'll discuss the common early warning signs of Alzheimer's and dementia. And it's so important that all of us are familiar with these 10 warning signs, not only to make sure that we're looking for the signs in ourselves, but also in the people around us, our friends, our neighbors, and our loved ones. As you can see in the next slide, we'll talk about the signs as we want to all be alert to them and be on the lookout for any kinds of changes. The signs that we discussed today do not constitute a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or dementia. These are simply the most common examples of changes that people experience. And it's important to remember that people may experience one or more of these signs and to varying degrees throughout their experience. In other words, this is not a checklist, and you certainly don't have to have all 10 signs in order to be concerned and to take action if you or somebody that you care for is experiencing any kind of change. Finally, some changes can be due to other medical conditions, so it's always important to talk with a doctor and understand the changes you or somebody else is experiencing. And the sooner you can have that conversation, probably the better the outcome for everyone. So let's talk about the first 3 warning signs of Alzheimer's disease. The first is one of the most common signs of Alzheimer's, especially early on, and that's forgetting recently learned information. In fact, people will say sometimes that their loved one is really good with past memories, things that happened 20 or 30 years ago, but may begin forgetting important dates or events, or repeatedly asking the same question, or even having to rely more frequently on memory aids or kind of leaning on others for things that they once easily remembered. A typical age-related change for all of us is sometimes forgetting that one little nugget of information, but most of the time remembering it later. So it's important to distinguish here that we're really looking for recently learned information and how much this may be impacting a person's everyday life. In the second warning sign, we hear often that people will experience new difficulties in executive function, including developing or following a plan, or even having difficulty concentrating. Probably many of us on this example today have had an occasional error when you're paying your bills or managing your household finances. But most times you can remember later that you need to do something and you can take that appropriate action. For somebody who's experiencing early stage Alzheimer's or experiencing the symptoms of dementia, it may not be easy to retrace those steps and be able to figure out what it was that you intended to do. And lastly, the third warning sign is that people living with dementia often find it hard just to complete the everyday tasks that used to be so simple. Things like driving to a familiar place, or writing out a grocery list, or even remembering how to play a favorite card game. All of us can occasionally need help using a microwave or using a remote control or even learning new technology. But when any one of these signs begins to happen more frequently or begins to interfere with the day-to-day function of a person's life, that's when we absolutely want to take action. So I'm pleased to introduce to you today Arthena Caston, and I'm going to throw the first question to Arthena and ask you, Arthena, when you were first experiencing some changes, which of these signs did you first notice?
Good evening, and thank you so very much for inviting me. Actually, Stephanie, I think I experienced almost all of them, almost every single one. It started with something as simple as forgetting how to, a job that I had been going to for 20 years, all of a sudden became something new to me. I couldn't do simple tasks, answer simple questions. And it just got little by little became worse. Soon I had something as simple as I was trying to help plan my daughter's wedding and totally forgot that I was supposed to contact different people to do things, such as having a planner do this, or it just got to be too much. I just couldn't remember. And little by little it got to the point where we had to actually get a professional planner because I couldn't remember.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like at first they were pretty subtle little changes that any one of us could overlook, but then it sort of started to creep in more frequently. And we hear that a lot of times, right? That people notice little changes and then they start to almost compound themselves. And I'm curious, Pippi, from your experience being a care partner with your mom, how do you see signs number 2 and signs number 3 being different? Because they really seem very similar on the surface.
They do, Stephanie, and thank you for asking that, because I am one of 4 care partners, or was, for my mother. Raising 5 children, my mother was very scheduled and a big planner. So the things were solving problems, simply things like she might find that she's got scheduled 2 things on the same day. For instance, her hair being cut and a doctor's appointment. And she could not seem to be able to problem solve, to just simply make a phone call, to make one another day, or to cancel one. So she was having issues with that. She also had issues with one of the things that happened was she did things in a certain order all the time when she was preparing dinner. And she, long before she had her own microwave installed, she loved them knowing other people had them. So she always seemed to make something in the microwave. And at one point, she had put something in the microwave and wrapped it in aluminum foil. And she was always very particular about what went in her microwave. And here she was doing something like that. So it definitely is something that showed itself a little bit and then increased in time as she progressed through the disease.
You know, both of you share examples that I think we've heard so many different people say, that at first it's a little sign, but then after a while, it's like, well, that really seems out of character for that individual. And I applaud both of you for taking early action to really try to figure out what was going on. You know, as we look at the next three signs 4, 5, and 6, I think it becomes more apparent at this point that somebody might have something going on that's not quite their normal baseline. So in the example here with the fourth sign, when an individual living with Alzheimer's or another dementia loses track of dates or even seasons or the passage of time, it might be that they're really having trouble understanding something that's not currently happening, or they're getting a little bit more confused about where they are and how they got there. We see this certainly becoming more dramatic or profound in the middle and late stages of Alzheimer's disease. And any one of us could certainly get confused about what day it is. And over the last year during the pandemic, that has been such a typical experience for so many of us. But understanding that you have a scheduled appointment and then realizing you missed it and figuring out what action to take, those are some of those kind of executive functions that we just talked about that we want to look for a change in. And if you see a change, then obviously we want to talk to your doctor. We also recognize that some individuals with Alzheimer's or another dementia may experience visual problems or difficulty with balance or trouble reading. Even problems judging distance and determining color and contrast can become a little bit difficult. All of those impact driving or just navigating the environment around them. And while we certainly recognize that vision changes like cataracts are more typical with age, we can easily screen for cataracts and realize if it's a true vision change or if the change that we're experiencing is more related to dementia or Alzheimer's. And we know that dementia and Alzheimer's aren't just changes in memory, but they can affect the whole brain and how that brain functions in our space. And then lastly on this slide, you know, we often will hear that individuals have trouble following or joining a conversation, or might stop in the middle of a conversation and forget what they were talking about, or find that they're constantly repeating stories. We find that people, as they're living with either one of these conditions, may struggle to find the right word or call things by the wrong name. For instance, I'm sitting in a chair, but somebody might not remember the word chair and struggle with trying to come up with that. So they create a descriptive term to describe the chair. Parthena, I'm so curious. You shared with me one time that reading has just always been a lifelong joy of yours, that you're finding a little bit harder now. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
I've definitely always loved to read. My whole life, I've always loved to read. And now I've gotten to the point where I can't read anymore. I cannot read, to be honest. I'll just be honest. I have a lot of problems reading magazines or books or anything that will take a long time for me to read. So now, and I laugh and tell everybody, I have my Alexa read for me. She reads everything for me. My Audible, well, she does most Audible for me. So I'm not missing all the great books that's coming out because I just put it in my Alexa and that's the greatest thing that's happened to me. And I love it. I have one in every room. I can read all across my house if I want to and not leave the room. So I love that. That is the joy of that.
That's fantastic. And what a great way to use technology to help you manage. You also mentioned to me one time, Arthena, that you were having a little bit of trouble keeping track of the days of the week. And in particular, you mentioned laundry day. So how have you made an adaptation around what you're experiencing with your memory with that?
My worst day, I do have a very bad problem keeping track of what day it is. So what happens is Tuesdays is laundry day in my house. And I have a great husband, a great caregiver. And what he does is on Tuesdays, he pulls the basket out into the laundry basket out into the bathroom for me. So when I go in to take my shower, of course, the laundry basket is sitting right there. And that lets me know that it's Tuesday. Otherwise, we probably would never get our clothes washed or something. I don't know, because I just walk right by Tuesday and don't even think about it. But that is a great thing about having him, because he keeps me on track. And again, Alexa pulls in today then, because I could also ask her what day it is. So I'm just loving that fact that I can, the little niches are helping me all around my house, keeping track of time for me, helping me with recipes, everything. But Tuesdays is the day I always remember, because he pulls that basket out for me every Tuesday morning.
It's a great way to describe how you've managed to deal with the memory change that you've experienced and still create an experience for yourself in your own home where you're able to function really well. And that's what all of us certainly strive for. As we think about the next signs that come up, signs 7 and 8, we certainly know that misplacing things is a sign that often causes concern in people. And I want to be really clear that this is not just about losing your keys occasionally or misplacing your wallet. We've all done that, and it's so aggravating when it happens. But we generally find that when you misplace something, you can retrace the steps to find them. And that's a really critical element, being able to figure out where you would have left it or used that item last and trace back. A person with Alzheimer's disease or dementia may lose things and may not be able to recall when was the last time that they saw them, or try to figure out where they might have placed them. Or people might start putting things in really unusual places, like putting a pair of shoes in the refrigerator. Because of that lack of executive function that we talked about and changes of awareness, the person may actually grow increasingly suspicious of others or start accusing others of taking their things or putting them in strange areas. So this is certainly a sign that we want to be really attuned to if we see the change in somebody that we care about. And again, on this slide, not everyone experiences some change in judgment or decision making, but occasionally people will say that they feel as if their judgment isn't as good. And especially when it comes to things like dealing with money or paying less attention to their own hygiene or how they keep their house up. Those are kind of the common signs that we often hear about. And that's particularly easy to recognize in people who live alone. They don't have anybody else there watching, and it's pretty easy to get in that pattern. And again, I want to distinguish that we're not overly critical when any one of us makes a bad decision once in a while, like forgetting to get your oil changed on the schedule that you wanted to. But when you start to see these symptoms occurring on a more frequent basis, that's when we really want to raise the alarm and have the conversation with ourselves and with others about what might be underlying these signs. So, Pippi, I'm curious from your perspective, when you were starting to notice some changes with your mom, what jumped out at you first?
Well, making excuses for things. And also, my mother was an avid reader, and she was a real wordsmith, and she was very social. And she just, things that would have been common sense just weren't there for her anymore. Things such as she did get accusatory. I would say for probably 6 or 7 months, and she had this thing where she would always feel like people were talking about her. And she would do this little, mostly just with family, but she would do this little thing and she'd just throw like a little hissy fit, and she'd get up and, run in the bedroom and slam the door. And then a few minutes later, she wouldn't even remember that she had done that. And her poor judgment was when she got her car keys taken away from her. And unfortunately, my father did not choose a good hiding place. And she did take the car, and she had an accident and could not even reason as to what happened. She just told us that this pole jumped right in front of her and hit her. And so we knew then that, it was time to definitely not just take the keys away, but the car. So yes, it was a hard time, but you did see throughout her disease, when she was still verbal, that these things continued and they just increased when they happened.
Yeah. And Arlena, you shared with us the other day that, as you've seen changes in your own memory and you've thought about how your relationship with your husband continues to evolve, you mentioned that you really lean on each other for support. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and how you've been able to have him there as your support?
I tell everybody that, to have a great caregiver is the best thing could happen to you. And my husband has always been there for me from day one. He is not faltered, not one bit. He is always there. He makes a point to, on Sundays, make sure he takes me out to enjoy life itself. Just even if his basketball game is on, he will take me out. But the best thing about him is that he got me a little job so that I would not be home by myself during the pandemic. And even afterward, he went to the point of, going to his supervisor, his boss, and saying, I need to have my wife out of the house. I need her to be around other people. And so he says this, and I know he means it. He says this, he says, I got my wife this job because I want to save her life. He says that all the time. And that means because he wanted me not to be at a place where I was digressing and being lonely. And so I'm telling you, the relationship we have is awesome. He takes me out for ice cream and all kinds of sweets. He even takes me shopping. And I love it. I love it to death. I think this is the best I don't know. I can't even say it's the best we've ever been in life, but it's really, really close to it.
Wow, that is so inspiring. And, as I think about the relationship that you have, you obviously have been very open with one another. And as we close out talking about the different warning signs number 9 and 10,